Do you ever wonder what goes on in the mind of a hitman? What are they thinking? Are they nervous? Are they scared? They have any regrets? Do they feel bad about what they're about to do or have done? Welcome back to another episode where we are gone nah. Take a look inside the mind of a mafia hitman. This is not a made-up story. These are true events that happened in the United States. And today we'll be looking at one of America's most deadly hitmen, Michael Swango. But before we get into this episode, make sure you subscribe for more content. Michael Swango was an American contract killer who murdered at least 60 people during his life. He was also known as Dr. Death, a name given to him by the media because many of his murders were committed while he was working as a medical doctor. While it was said that he killed around 60 people, only 15 murders could be officially linked back to him, with the other ones being murder attempts or suspicious deaths while he was present. The victims that he had killed were from all walks of life and included people of different races, religions, and sexual orientations. However, most of them did share one thing in common: they knew something they shouldn't have. They either witnessed a crime or knew about a crime that had happened and were going to testify against the mafia in court. So it was up to Swango to go out and silence them. On December 1923, Michael Swango was born in Brooklyn, New York. His father worked as a pharmacist and owned his own store. From a very young age, it was clear that Swango was an intelligent child, often skipping grades as he went through school. Unfortunately for Swango, as he got older, he developed a very nasty temper. It would get so bad that his teachers would have to physically remove him from the classroom. When he was just 12 years old, Swango attempted to stab his brother with a pair of scissors after he insulted him. Swango later admitted to psychiatrists that from a young age, he hated authority and could uncontrol his anger issues. This would later catch up with him when he became a doctor and thought he was above everyone else. Swango excelled in high school and managed to get himself a scholarship to attend Brooklyn College. In 1943, he graduated with a degree in biology. After college, he attended Downstate Medical Center in New York to study medicine. While there, he was involved in multiple violent incidents. He was once suspended from the hospital after punching a nurse in the stomach for criticizing his work. But despite his anger issues, Swango managed to graduate from medical school and become a fully qualified doctor. In the early 1950s, Swango moved to Niagara and began working as a pathologist. While there, he met a woman named Mary Ann Cato, who he would later marry. The couple would go on to have 2 sons together. During this time, Swango had a lot of problems with the law. One night, he was arrested for drunk driving and spent the night in jail. Another time, he was arrested for carrying a concealed weapon after a bar fight. These constant run-ins with the law really didn't help his career either, as he lost his job as a pathologist due to his unpredictable behavior. Because of this, Swango decided to move to Detroit, Michigan, and start over. In Detroit, Swango got a job at Grace Hospital as a pathology lab director. During his time there, he continued his relationship with organized crime. In fact, he even became friendly with the Buffalo crime family, specifically a man named Joseph Barbera. If you remember him from our last episode, Barbera was the underboss of the Buffalo crime family and was one of the men who ordered Frank, the Teflon Don Thierry's murder. Swango had met Thierry and liked him so much that when Thierry was killed, Swango was devastated. To console him, Barbera offered him money to kill anyone who witnessed the murder. Swango took him up on the offer and ended the life of one of the men who saw Torelli's murder. This kick-started Swango's career as a hitman. Over the next few decades, Swango would go on to carry out around 60 murders for the mafia. Even though he was a doctor, he wasn't exactly careful with his poisons. Most of the time, he would simply slip a poison into someone's drink or food, then sit back and wait for them to die. Other times, he would use guns or knives to do the dirty work. All of these murders would end up getting him the nickname Dr. Death. As the years went on, Swango became more reckless than ever. He would often boast about how many people he had killed and even showed no remorse. When he was finally caught and put on trial for some of his crimes, when asked why he had killed one of the victims, he replied he had to be whacked. He was going to the newspapers. When asked if he felt bad about killing so many innocent people, Swango said, "Why should I feel bad? They had to be whacked. It's as simple as that." This complete lack of remorse and empathy for his victims shocked everyone. Even the judge presiding over his case said, "I've never seen a defendant who has such utter contempt for human life." Swango was eventually sentenced to 25 years in prison for his crimes. However, he died of cancer just 3 years later in 1998. Even in death, Swango still shocked people. When he died, he left behind a list of names, which turned out to be the names of his remaining targets that he hadn't gotten to yet. With all that being said, let's now take a look at some of his most shocking murders. Anthony Battaglia. Anthony Battaglia was a member of the Buffalo crime family and close friend of Joseph Barbera. In the early 1970s, Battaglia began planning a massive insurance scam. He planned to murder 4 people and collect on their life insurance policies. However, he was soon discovered, and Swango was hired to eliminate him. On April 6, 1971, Swango invited Battaglia over to his house for dinner. During the meal, Swango slipped some poison into Battaglia's food. Battaglia felt ill shortly after eating and was rushed to the hospital, where he died a few days later. The autopsy report showed that Battaglia died from cyanide poisoning. Swango was the prime suspect, but there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. Frank the Teflon Don Thierry. As we've mentioned before, Frank Thierry was a powerful mobster who ran the Buffalo crime family. However, in the early 1980s, he began to fear for his life. He had been a target of a massive FBI investigation and knew that his time was running out. That's why he decided to cooperate with the feds and testify against his former associates. But before he could take the stand, he was murdered. On March 19, 1980, Swango was hired by Joseph Barbera to kill Thierry. At the time, Swango was working as a pathologist at Erie County Medical Center. One day, Thierry came into the lab to have a private conversation with Swango. However, little did Thierry know that this was a trap. After the meeting, Swango slipped a poison into Thierry's drink. Thierry felt sick shortly after leaving the lab and was rushed to the hospital. He died a few days later from kidney failure.
Casper.
The cigar man, Carappa.
Capo.
Carappa was a capo regime in the Buffalo crime family and earned the nickname the Cigar Man for always being seen with a cigar in his mouth. However, in the early 1980s, he too began to fear for his life. Like Tilly, he had been involved in the Mafia for a long time and knew that his time was running out. That's why he decided to cooperate with the feds and testify against his former associates. But before he could take the stand, he was murdered. On May 7, 1982, Swango was hired by Joseph Barbera to kill Caracappa. Swango invited Caracappa to his house for dinner and slipped some poison into his food. Caracappa felt sick shortly after eating and was rushed to the hospital, where he died a few days later. There were so many more murders that Swango was involved in, but these were some of the most shocking. So now we're going to answer some questions you might have about Swango. Did Swango ever get caught?
Yes.
In 1986. Swango was arrested for a murder that he had committed in 1971. However, he was acquitted of all charges. It wouldn't be until 1992 that he'd be convicted for some of his crimes. Was Swango a made man? No. Despite his close ties to the Mafia, Swango was never a made man. He was always an outside contractor. What kind of poison did Swango use? Swango primarily used cyanide when committing his murders. He would either put it in food or drinks. So what do you think about Swango? Let us know in the comments below. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to leave us a like. Subscribe to our channel for more content. See you next time.